Hi, I'm Steve Parker, founder and CEO of The Profitable Dentist.
And I'm Gary Cady, founder and CEO of Next Level Practice.
Together, we have over 50 years of experience helping dental practices overcome hurdles and achieve the success they deserve.
We wanted to speak with successful dentists to see what problems they faced and how they overcame them.
So we're teaming up for a road trip across America to showcase practices that have set the bar for excellence.
Join us as we go behind the mask.
Today, we're visiting Dr. Donna Williams of Morningside Dental in Harlem, New York. Harlem has a rich culture rooted in activism, music, and art. With a population of roughly 150,000, Harlem is a city unto itself. Life in the big city presents a particular set of obstacles that not every dental practice can sustain. High rents, high competition, and high stress have forced many to flee. With that being said, Dr. Williams has been in practice for over 30 years and has become a pioneer for health and change in her community. Recently, she has learned the art of making time for herself while still maintaining a successful practice. Her newfound free time was used to realize a lifelong dream of helping others in need. In 2017, she helped construct a dental and medical training and treatment facility in her native Tanzania. Today, we're going to hear her amazing journey and how she freed herself to be herself.
We're in freaking Harlem, Steve.
Harlem, New York, New York City.
Hey, we're not in the sticks anymore.
No.
You're the Knicks in the sticks, and I'm a part of the Knicks, baby. You know, it's like Hicks versus Sticks, man. And this is Harlem, New York. I mean, there's a lot of history here.
This is so cool.
Steve, this is an I Love New York day. It's gorgeous. It's, you know, here we are filming for season 2.
Yeah, so Dr. Donna Williams, Morningside Dental, tell me about it. Tell me about her. Tell me about the practice.
I have a real fond connection with Dr. Williams. She's such a caring, like community-driven, loving dentist. You know, she's successful. You know, just knocking on the 7 figures when I first met her, and here she is. You know, in Harlem, New York, Morningside, Harlem. You know, great culture, great community, and you know, she realized I'm a business owner.
Right.
Oh gosh. So I got to start looking at this as my business, but she had this big passion. She's originally from Tanzania, and she wanted to bring this body of work that you're going to learn about, Complete Health Dentistry, and she wanted to bring this work and build a whole hospital and facility and training facility for doctors over there. And she didn't have the time to do it, but she had this big vision.
I think that's what's amazing, and I think that's why I like the title of this, and I think a lot of docs out there are going to relate to this. There's a thing they want to do. I mean, it could just be work less, or it could be retire sooner, or it could be a mission to Tanzania, and they think it's impossible. They don't think they can do it. And what Dr. Williams proves is it can be done if you understand what you're getting into and you do it the right way.
That's right.
I think that's really the amazing part about her story.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And she's about helping people. And so this is where you can do well while doing good. You can still make a nice living and do good in the world simultaneously. Most people think, Steve, it's either have to make a lot of money or it's the or world versus the and world.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
knowing it's possible is the very first step.
Exactly.
And so I think she's done that very, very well.
So let's get behind the mask.
Let's go inside.
All right. We did it.
Yeah, here we are, Morningside Dental Care.
Yes. Good
Harlem,
to see
New
you.
York.
Good to see
Yeah.
you. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Welcome to the neighborhood. I'm so
Yeah,
excited
that's-
that you're here.
Yeah, it's really exciting. And Steve and I have been traveling all around the U.S. and to be here in the great Harlem, New York City, NYC, baby.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to learn more about your journey and how you've come to this beautiful place and what you've taken on in your life. You know, this episode is free yourself to be yourself. And you have all this vision of what's possible and a dream that you've had and had your dream come true and continue that dream and use your practice as the launching pad for all of this to happen. So we're going to unpack this today. My favorite word is unpack because it's like there's so much here. So thank you for inviting us in and getting behind the mask today.
Absolutely. I'm glad to do something other than wearing the mask all the time. So this is a wonderful change.
You bet. So you wear a lot of hats and you wear, the mask, and now we're going to really like step back and breathe. And it's also an acknowledgement for the courage that it takes and the vision that you have for this great community of Harlem, Steve. I mean, we had a chance to walk around.
We did.
Isn't
Yeah,
it
it's
cool?
beautiful.
Yeah.
It's we were not too long ago. We were in New London, Ohio, with some friends of ours now, and you couldn't be farther away. I think the entire city or county of New London, Ohio, would fit in this building across the street. So so what's always interested me is the differences. Gary and I were talking on the way in. The differences in dental practices.
Yeah.
And each one is as unique as the practice owner. So I'm really excited we're going to do this today.
Yeah. No, Harlem is amazing. It's a wonderful, vibrant neighborhood in Manhattan. And, we're definitely known for our diversity of culture. And there's, wonderful music. Up the street is the Apollo Theater, which is really known for some of the, famous musicians, actors, et cetera, to come through. So, no, it's a wonderful, wonderful neighborhood.
You get the window office right out there.
Yeah.
It really it's just beautiful.
And you live and work here, which is really nice. So I know Yanga, your husband, he does great work as well. And your community, you're leaders in the community. You really take on the whole vibe of the neighborhood, and that's really makes it even more special. I know you have been here since 90.
I've been here since 95.
95, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And where did you come from before that?
So after dental school, and this is actually May will be 30 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Wow, what a journey. I can't wait to learn about this, Steve.
After dental school, I moved down to St. Thomas, Virgin Islands. So my first practice was down there.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I was married at the time, and we had a partnership. My ex-husband is a orthodontist, and I was a general dentist, and we were able to put the practice there, and his doing orthodontics. We kind of would fly to the different islands while we were there, so it's a wonderful time, and so I started there. I was down there until 95, and came up here, and I started Morningside Dental Care.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really great. And then you live a couple blocks away, and this was located not in the brownstone we're in now, but it was located.
So right on 125th Street, right in the heart of Harlem.
Wow,
on the
125 is
second
big.
floor, and 125th and St. Nicholas.
Wow, and what
So-
kind of dentistry were you doing at the time? What were you doing? What was
You
it
know
like?
what? I have always been wanting to do quality, and really the biggest thing to me is when I moved up here first, and going to attending church, and one of the parishioners said, "Oh, you know what? We don't like to go to dentists in Harlem because they're shoemakers." Well, because dentistry had a really poor perception up here. And so it was my goal to open a practice here and really change the perception of dentistry and change the quality of dentistry, because I felt that our neighbors in Harlem deserved the best.
Oh, that's so great. And you've done that, and as people are going to learn on this Behind the Mask, like you've taken dentistry to a brand new level of what's possible, and then taken it abroad to Tanzania as well, which we're going to talk about today, which is pretty special.
Yes, that's what I want to get to.
right? So you had this dream about, this Tanzania connection that you have. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I've been associated with Tanzania for many years. When we were children, my father wanted us to live in an African country, and he's a pediatrician. And so he moved us to Tanzania, so back in the 70s.
Wow.
He said when he was there, he was so despondent after being there for a few months, seeing so many children die on a daily basis, and wanted to bring us back. But part of how he got there was through working with the Tanzanian government. So he was on a Tanzanian salary, and there were 6 of us, so he couldn't afford to bring us back. So he said, okay, we're going to stick it out, and we're just going to, make the best of it. And we really grew to love the country, the people. They're beautiful, so special. And so they came back and they formed the organization Adventures in Health, Education, and Agricultural Development. It's called AHEAD Inc. So since 1981, we have been going back and forth to Tanzania and the Gambia, but primarily Tanzania, and taking volunteers and doing, a lot of different projects there.
It's so exciting. And your dad planted a seed in the 70s, and here you are. You went back there. And, I was going to wait till later, but I think it's really important that we talk about this right now, Steve, because, so often we have practitioners have these dreams, and then they put them off and someday when, maybe never, right? It's like they have these, I don't know if I like this word passion project, because this is not a passion project. This is like a dream fulfilled. Like, so often, how often, Steve? Steve is really a trend follower. He knows what's happening from a global perspective, interacts with 120,000 practitioners each month through the Profitable Dentist. So he really gets to see like what's really happening. And the landscape for me, Donna, is that you hear these dreams that are wanting to be expressed. Do great work abroad, or even just take more time off, right? And so what I love about you is that you had this picture of what was possible, and you actually created it, and you did it simultaneously while running a successful practice and continue to grow your practice, right? And what was that like for you?
Well, Gary, this is actually going into my 6th year with Next Level Practice. And I am like so grateful. It's just a synergy that I feel with everything that you all do, getting people healthier, around the world. And that's really what I'm about. And so there were so many things that I felt that connected me to Next Level. And I think it was going to that Complete Health Practice course. And, I was in tears. I don't remember which video. Well, it was the video with the older
the
man.
Up video. The
yes.
Up video.
And
Do you know the Up movie? It's a montage of Up. Yeah.
And just that really because I've been thinking about like what more can I do with the head, because I love that organization and everything that we stand for, everything that my parents have done over the years, and knowing that they're not spring chickens anymore, and that they have been wanting to really pass the mantle on to their children, and just really watching that, and everything. That day I said, you know what, I've got to do more. Another one of the wonderful sayings that you say is the Margaret Mead quote. Yeah. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And all of that just came together for me. And I'm like, you know what? Why am I just not doing? Let me help. Like, these people say that there's a way that you can have everything and, go and serve and do what I love to do, and also, bring dentistry and the dentistry that I love to do and connect everything together and just make it happen. And so that's what we're doing.
Yeah, so the picture, I think we need to bring it into light, what actually happened. So what year did you go over to Tanzania, and what did you build?
Okay. So we've been going, back and forth taking volunteers. But about, I guess it was 2 years ago now, that we created. Well, I went over to Tanzania, and when we were there, we went to this village, and in the village, it's a small a dispensary. And in the dispensary, there was a room. It had 10 beds, and the beds were all lined up together right next to each other. There were pregnant mothers, mothers who had just delivered babies. There were little children in there. And there was this other older woman who was in there who was sitting down, and my husband went over to talk to her. And and the doctor who was there said, don't go too close. We don't know if she has TB or we don't know what it is. But it really horrified me. I'm like, all these little, children and, newborns all in here with this woman. They don't know, what's going on. And of course, it was, soon after you hear about, Ebola and, knowing that could really decimate a whole community. So what we decided to do was to, first it started out, it was just going to be an isolation unit and then a pediatric ward. So the children could come and have a separate place. And then if there was somebody who came in we didn't know, we could put the isolation unit there. But then after, we got the commitment of the community and the way the community came together, it blew my mind. Like, people would come. There was a woman who was in her 90s who came and brought a chicken. And she said, I don't know if I'm going to be around, but I am so for this project and wanting it to happen. So she gave that. So people were donating money, materials, their time, and they took it on. There would be, people who from the diaspora who would go to visit their community members, and then they would go by there. They would take pictures of showing the construction of the project, and then send the pictures to us and say, look how it's going, and you all are doing a great job. Then you saw the government coming by, and they were impressed. So the government designated it as a health center instead of just the pediatric ward and isolation unit. And so last year, or this past summer, we actually did the dedication ceremony and giving it to the people in the village. And the first baby was born there last, I guess it was Good Friday of 2019 of this year. Yeah.
400 people got together to build it?
Oh,
or
yes,
more?
yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
like you estimate 400. And how many beds? And
so now there are 20 beds there. I mean, it's a huge facility now. So now we're actually trying to get more equipment and supplies. But there's a morgue, there's a surgical ward. They even have a special house for the doctors. It's really a big.
And you're training the dentists there?
And we're working with the dentist there. But so the other great thing is that, which is really amazing to me as well, is that now there was a woman who built a little shop and started serving food. So now there's, a little restaurant there. There's somebody who had opened up a little bed and breakfast in the area. And then the members of the community, and because they have this WhatsApp group, and one of them said, you know what, we could have a school here. So in their mind now, they are thinking what's possible, and that's what's so amazing and exciting about it. Yeah.
And those terms, what's possible, it all came from your what's possible, because when you first started this practice, right? Let's rewind now. So here you have this thing built in Tanzania. You're training dentists. You have a medical dental facility, right? Mm-hmm. And now you have a business and a responsibility back here in Harlem, right? Yeah. And so your practice was doing about $1 million, right? Right around there when we first met. And then we came in and we talked and we said, hey, you came to me and said, look, I love this complete health dentistry thing. Mm-hmm. I want to have this dream, but how do I have freedom? Because last year, didn't you take, wasn't it 2 months off?
Mm-hmm. Well, it was the year before. We were my best year was when I took 2 months away from the office.
Now the ego mind goes, hey, I didn't need to be here. Do you need me here? I don't need to be here. And you had your best year. You took 2 months off. You built your dream practice. That's why it's free yourself to be yourself. Because doesn't knowing that you're making a difference here in Harlem and abroad in Africa, like that's pretty amazing, right? To wake
Yes.
up to that every day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's like you just didn't snap your fingers. What we talked about, I remember, was really looking at that you have a really good foundation here, Donna.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, in dental school, if you missed that, the mechanics, how to build a team, how to lead a team, how to put systems and processes in, right? That's not the training that you left dental school with, right?
I think that's like a week or a couple of days, maybe even. Yeah, you don't learn about.
I don't know if you remember this, but I remember one of the first things we do, Stephen, when we really look at a practice is what's the capacity of that practice, right? We sit and look at it and we go, like, what do we, in order to know what to do to grow a practice and free up a doctor, we have to know what the capacity is. So most doctors want to look at, new patients, right? They're always like, how many people come to you from marketing?
everything.
Yeah, it's like one size fits all. Throw a bunch of new patients, we're good. But what I believe is, why don't we take care of the ones we have?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
And then really take care of them. Like, how about if we change their life, the way they breathe, the way that you manage the bacteria in your body and your mouth, and you start thinking from this perspective, right? And we started having that conversation. I said, Donna, let's take a look at the capacity of your practice. And I remember I ran it. It was like, it's three things that you really have to look at, Steve. When we talk about this, it's like case acceptance, retention, and then the experience and acquisition of new patients, right? So you were getting, I look back at your statistics, you were getting 40-something new patients back in 2016, and when we first started really tracking.
Yes.
And you're still getting 40-some new patients, but your retention
The retention is increasing.
is so different. Do you know your when I looked at your pre-appoints, you were at 37% pre-appoints, like meaning when a patient leaves hygiene, they get an appointment. 37%. You're at over 80 now.
Yes. Yes. And, those are like really amazing things that you all do and, showing us, about those things that we really didn't necessarily think about. And it made me feel bad. I actually I'm a hygienist as well. And
I didn't know that about
Yes.
you. Now I learned something new. Oh my gosh.
And so the hygiene background, and then also I do the LANAP surgery, the laser assisted new attachment procedure. Actually, I was the second person in New York.
I remember. She's an innovator. Innovator, Steve.
So I'm like, you have all of these patients and you're doing this, and just, we're trying to get their oral health and their periodontal disease. And if you're not really paying attention to that, like that's one of the best things that you ever, recommended that we do.
Thank you.
We need to have those patients coming back all the time, frequently, because we know how important it is.
Well, yeah, and I remember we ran the numbers. It was, if you take, and we call it the care system, Steve, case acceptance here, PPOs, you take PPOs here, right? Gladly. 1,000 for a crown, right around 1,000, and like say 1,000, a crown and a buildup. Right? And then you take 2 prophies, 2 exams, a set of bite wings. Here it was about $400, right? So 400 plus 1,000 retention, plus your case acceptance, 1,400. She had 1,800 patients. That's over $2.5 million in capacity. Right there. And you were doing $1 million. I'm like, Donna, you can really grow this practice. Because I always sit down with doctors and I go, what is your dreams? How many people do you think out of 100 could tell me what their specific dreams are?
Right. I
Very
think
few.
They just want to not have to struggle every day. I think that in the dental business, they just don't want to struggle and fight it every day.
That's why for me, when I met Donna and she told me what her dreams were and what she wanted to do here in Harlem, having a vision that all New Yorkers know that the mouth is the gateway and foundation for whole body health. And then she had this picture of what was possible in Tanzania. I'm like, see, that's the way I look at my work differently. Like, how do I free you to be you? How do I get you set up so you can be out of the center of it all, so you can go, have your picture of what's possible realized. And so you're like one of my
I have that question. So we talked beforehand, and I asked you time frames. And so what I'm interested in is when you heard that, you're 8 years ago, you're just trying to stay alive. You're doing what probably the majority of the people who are watching now are doing, and saying, that's great. So she must have, she was a dentist for a long time, then she won the lottery, and then she did what she wanted to do. And I think that really is how people look at it. And that's the answer. So you go to this thing, you hear Gary, and he starts off with that what your practice should be doing.
Yeah.
So when he said that, he said 2.2 million?
2.56.
So when he says that out loud for the world to hear and you, what's your first thought?
I mean, because I'm thinking, and I'm like, and so I'm going to think again, and I'm like, but it makes sense. It makes sense.
Right.
So.
Not everybody responds that way, Steve.
Most will say that's impossible. I've been doing this for 20 years. I know what I can do. I'm working hard every day. I'm showing up. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do, everything I learned in dental school, a lot of things I didn't, and this is where I am. And now this guy says I can do this. And I think that is the difference, is that you have to believe it's possible. And the moment you do, I think, is when it changes.
And I think you have to believe that, and we did, went to University of Maryland, the oldest dental school in the world, right? And I know that we got a wonderful basic education. But we have to believe that there are other things, and that we did have all of the primary education and knowing, how to care for our patients, but we didn't have that education on the business side of it, and to be able to open up our minds to be able to see what other things we can learn. Because there are a lot of people who are doing it. I see other offices doing it, other practices doing it. And I'm like, well, I've got to do it too.
Exactly. But really to have time and money work. Because it's one thing to have money. People think they have to work more, right? Isn't that like the thought process? I have to work more hours to do that. And that's the debunking of the myth here. You're a walking, talking person that actually said, we actually blocked the time out. We knew the revenue. We reverse engineered. We know exactly how much everybody needs to do per day, per person.
Yes.
And what happened when we reverse engineered and shift? Because you're over the 2 million mark this year, right?
Yes.
So here you are, double the size. You can take that time off should you choose, right?
And I'm only in the chair 3 days a week.
And you were working how many days before?
5, and before it used to be 6, but
because Saturdays, of course, you got to be open, right? This is a working class neighborhood. You got to be open Saturdays.
Yes.
So here you are working 6 days. You're working half the amount.
Yes.
And you're doing double the revenue.
Yes.
Yeah, and then you're taking 2 months off as well.
So it couldn't have always been that easy. So can you tell us a little bit about where you started, maybe from dental school to that first practice and the journey through that to really where you are today?
So it definitely was not always that easy. And, as I mentioned, I was, married previously and was divorced and then moved here to New York. And so starting off my own practice, even though that was something that I was understood how to do because I had, done the one in the Virgin Islands before. But, you're definitely on your own. A few years after that, I had a child. And that really made everything, it changed life for me. And, I was a single mother at the time. And not only that, my child was a 26-week preemie.
Wow.
Yeah. And so most of my family, live in Maryland, D.C. area. And so I was, up here in New York without a lot of support, but had enough, friends who were able to help. My son was in and out of the hospital for the first 2 years of his life about 9 times. He coded in the hospital. It was really rough, going to visit, going to see a sick child in the hospital on a regular basis, then coming to work every day for, a few years was really a struggle. It was one of the times when I was in the hospital at Mount Sinai when one of the doctors, and coming from a family of physicians, I always said, you know what, physicians can really make you better, and they can just fix things. But one of the physicians said, well, you know what we do is we support the body, we'll support his airway, but he's got to grow, and the body's got to heal itself. Mm-hmm. And so, in fact, that started my journey into getting information about, alternative and holistic dentistry and that type of a thing. And so then again, another synergy with complete health dentistry and holistic dentistry with what we talk about getting our patients healthy, and know that it's not just the teeth that come into the office, there's a whole body attached. And if we're not looking at the whole body and seeing how they are connected to each other, then we're not helping our patients as much as we truly can. Mm-hmm. So it was definitely a struggle during the first few years, and really trying to grow the practice and caring for my my son. So.
And now how old is he?
He will be 21 next month.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so great. And he's thriving in college.
Oh my gosh, he's in his third year and he's doing well, and he's and you would never know that it was this little baby. I didn't even know what to do with.
Wow. And you were alone, and you made it through.
Yeah.
Wow. So here you are now, you're a single mom. And now you're running a practice, you're doing it on your own. Where was the moment, what was going on at that time for you that you were like, hey, I got to make a shift?
Mm-hmm. So basically, I've used different consultants over the years. I've always, there was a consultant, I don't remember which one, who said that you need somebody who can help to look for, you always have a coach when you are, on a sports team. And so having a consultant is your coach. And that is helpful because they can step from outside and really kind of look in. And I've gone through, a number of different ones, and I feel I've learned something from all of the different ones. I just think how you all, with Next Level Practice, empower the team and really get the team involved and participating, and the team is what generates everything. I know that when I was, as I mentioned, that I was doing, the complete health, but I'm trying to educate my patients on my own. But, using, the Healthy Mouth baseline, that now our team are doing the educations to the patient. And imagine how many more patients they can educate. And of course, people trust our teams to be better educators than us, and they'll listen to them. And so that's really made a tremendous difference.
Yeah, that's great. And I and thank you for your trust and allowing us to be here and guide you to that. And what I got to see, Steve, the number one asset, an asset that we found really makes a difference, is creating a happy team that implements sustainable results. And decentralizing the doctor. That's how you can go away for two months and move from 6 days a week to 3 days a week. Because if everything has to go through the hub being the doctor, it's not going to work.
You become a bottleneck. You become a stopping point.
Exactly.
Instead of greasing the wheels.
Exactly, and you can feel it. Yeah, you can feel it if people are not there and there's a bottleneck. But then once you have the team there and they're flowing, it's a wonderful feeling.
Yeah, and I remember putting the right people in the right places, doing the right thing.
Yes.
So an appointment coordinator, making sure that the appointment is scheduled right, the way you want it as a doctor, to the amount that you want to have. That's the other thing. Steve, I often see that a lot of practices, just they hope to fill the schedule. It's fill the schedule, but what are you filling it with? Right. So what are you filling your time with? So we really look at two commodities, time and money. And what we do is we take, what do you want to do annually? So we sit down every year and we go, we're going to do this annually and this dollar amount. And then we're going to reverse engineer with this many days. So, and we have this many hygiene days and we have this many doctor days. And that tells us how much we need to do per day per person on the team. See, the turning point for this business model is this. you turn your payroll into a profit center, meaning your biggest expense is your payroll. Most practices, this is what I saw, Donna, when I first invented this, that 20% of the team members were generating 80% of the revenue. I'm like, how do we get the most trusted people by the patient, like the assistant? How do we get them involved? How do we get the appointment coordinators involved, the treatment coordinators involved? We get them involved in a way to a measure that they're accountable to. And what we find is there's a paradigm shift. Instead of like, if you're an assistant, most trusted person, like Jose, when I come in here, we talk baseball, he's like down here. See, what I saw was the dentist, some patients think the dentist is trying to buy their next Porsche from the dentistry they do in their mouth. There's that filter, right?
Yep.
But Jose, he's like, hey, what do you think about the Yankees this year? He's talking to me like this. But if I can get Jose to stick an intraoral camera in my mouth, he's not trying to sell me something from a place of, and Jose is just my friend. And you get Jose involved in the game, and Jose knows how much he needs to do for that day. He changes from being an assistant to being a ninja, Steve.
Right.
That's a no, I'm not just an assistant. I make a difference here. People trust me. And so what he does is he knows that, Donna needs to do 8,000 a day. So if he walks into the huddle and it's 6,500, he can just look at my chart and see that I actually need a crown right now, and he can go, hey, can you stay? We'll get that done and we'll get you done. And he's thinking, not just turning rooms, he's going and sterilizing instruments. He's like, Gary's my friend. I talk to him and I help him get healthy and I help the practice grow. And he understands that.
And it's got to be that triple win.
And
the patients are getting what they need, the practice is getting what they need, and the team is getting. So when it works all together,
everybody's pulling in the same direction at the same time, to the same goal, which I think is really interesting that you bring it down. I think if you talk to any practice owner, they would say, this is what we need to do this year. And we're all going to come in, 192 days, and we're going to work really hard towards that. And, at about day 185, they say, how we doing? And guess what? There is no catching up. We're in the end of November going into December. And I hear this I can't tell you how many calls or emails I get at the end of a year that says, hey, we're coming up on the year. We're not close. We need something fast. And it's usually, where do I get a lot of new patients now? Between now and the end of the year, it just isn't that easy. So that's why I'm very interested in what you do, in that you break it down into those little bite-sized pieces and bring your team along with you.
We have some wonderful team, the treatment coordinators, the appointment coordinators, and they know how much it is, to schedule every day. And it's really interesting because sometimes, most dentists would be a little bit fearful when you see, okay, well, your schedule is not packed full, fill that white spot. But if we've hit our goal for the day, we don't need to continue to see more patients on that day.
So I do have a question. So so you saw something from Gary 6 years ago. He came in on a Friday, had a meeting with your team, and then Shazam. All this is into place, and all this is rolling. So is that about how it went? Because people who watch this think, well, gosh, I'm just going to have that guy come in for a day.
No.
I'm assuming it's a little more complicated.
He had
a little more time.
He had one of his wonderful coaches, Justina, come and speak to us. And Justina, actually, we spoke over a number of months because I wasn't necessarily quite ready to dive in at the beginning. I was, heard about it, wanted to hear more, wanted to know more. And she was, very persistent in letting me know. And then as soon as we signed up, one of the wonderful things that we did is we went down to, Florida, took the whole team down. We did all the training at the same time. So everybody came back motivated. And I find every time that we go to, the team summits, that they are so helpful, and the team gets to interact with other, team members who are, doing the same jobs that they do, have the same responsibilities, and they can exchange ideas. And even the thing, what we do on Wednesdays, where we have, methodology with Marcy and, the dreams, and, there's so many. It's like I don't have to say a thing. That's basically what it is. They can sit there, they see, all the other different offices, some doing really well, some struggling, they can relate and they can say, oh, you know what, and they can call each other, and all of the next level practices, there's such a camaraderie, and they're, everybody shares. And they'll share information. Oh, this is the best practice here, and this is what we did. And so, the team sees, and they're like, well, if they can do that, then we can do that.
I think that's what I see in the community. I think you call it your community.
Yes.
Yeah.
I see that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That it really is you guys, as practice owners, you now have somebody you can turn to and say, this is what's happening in Harlem. And they say, well, this is what we're doing in New London, Ohio, or this is what we're doing in Columbus or Florida.
And I don't even have to say it. We just turn on the TV, the computer, and they see it.
Yeah.
I just make sure, be
They
here
watch
on
it.
Wednesdays.
So how does that, so from dental school, or from 8 years ago or 7 years ago to doing that today, is that everything you would have imagined would help the practice or change the
and guess
practice?
what? It's 2 hours. Well, that is really it's an hour. So it's a half an hour where we're learning something, and then the other half an hour we're really, talking about it and seeing how we can implement it in our practice. But then we also do our team meeting during that time. So 2 hours a week. And most people are scared to how can you take that time away? You've got to be in somebody's mouth. But no, you've got to be working on how we can do things better. How can we serve our patients better and our teams?
And go from 6 days to 3 days and double your revenue.
Double your production.
Because
Yeah,
she works.
it's astounding.
Donna is all the people that are in the top 1% of the community, in fact, they all dedicate the time to working on the practice. And they sit back and they think and they collaborate and they role play and they get connected to what the purpose is. And that's what I want to highlight as well. I'm going to go through some statistics here that I think are really important. And I think it's always whenever we have the behind the mask, they're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. Like even, going from 1 to 2 and then 6 days to 3, it's like, oh, and when you put it like that,
it's like, oh yeah.
But when you're in the weeds in the day to day, you're like, wow, what are we really doing sometimes, right? And then, so it's nice to step out. And that's what makes Donna, such a great leader, because she understands the investment in that turns, into the practice.
That's the word too, I think. It's the investment. You're investing in 2 hours. You're investing 2 hours of time in your practice every week. And that is, so it's not a cost, which I think you're right on. Most practice owners would see that as, I can't afford those 2 hours of non-production time. I'm busy going to find more new patients. So I'm going to spend time on more new patients versus exactly what you're doing. So the numbers are my favorite part.
Yeah, all right, let's break it out. So I'm gonna hit you up with some numbers, and I always love that I can control all my practices on my phone.
It's a magic dashboard. It really is.
So we plug into their dashboard, and the dashboard feeds my phone, Steve. So I'm a numbers guy. Steve and I are numbers guys. So I want to just share some beautiful numbers with you. My favorite one is one of my favorite ones. The care system, 3 ways to build a practice, case acceptance. In 2016, you used to present 220,000 and get 52 accepted. And now you're at 431 and over just right about $100,000 in treatment acceptance. I mean, that's profound to be able to do that. And that all comes, do you do any selling?
No.
Yeah.
No. It's what patients need, but it's really getting them to understand and connecting their personal motivator to the treatment that they need. And how is this going to impact their life?
So you're not pushing off treatment that they don't need.
No, absolutely not. And that's what people really need to understand. Yeah. Every patient who comes in, it's what I would give to if it was my mother, my brother, my sister. I'm going to give them the best. And lots of times, and especially when we're talking about Harlem, and traditionally we feel, oh well, patients can't afford things. It's not that. It's that patients really need to understand and be educated as to how important their oral health is. And when you're tying that to their personal motivator, what's important to them, and how they could maybe lose that ability to do what they love to do, once they understand that connection, then they can say, I think I need to get that done.
Yeah, so Donna follows the 5-step patient education system, which really starts with what is the person motivated by? And it's what they do, it's what they're already motivated by in their life. And their team's trained on listening for are they, they want to live a longer life. They want to, be healthier. Like, what is it? They want to look better because they want to be in a relationship. They know how to listen for what's behind what the patient really is there and being in the chair for. And then there's that healthy mouth baseline that Donna spoke about. That becomes the benchmark for what's healthy. So now the patient's looking at it, and it's not like Donna's opinion about it. Mm-hmm. It's the team member that's like the trusted team member, the assistant or the hygienist. They're saying, here's what's healthy in our practice. And then when they're using the intraoral camera and they're doing probing, all of a sudden they see that there's a gap between what we stand for as healthy here and what's actually happening in the mouth. The patient then is asking you for, like, what do we do about this?
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So that system is, and that's a systematic process. That's a process that's built, and you get the right people in the right places doing the right things with the right measures, and then you give them these tools. And that's what happens. So that was, I love that statistic. And one of my favorites, here's another favorite. Look at this, Steve. The hygiene case acceptance, 12,000 presented, 8,000 accepted, and now you're at 75,000 presented, and up to $30,000 in accepted. Yeah. So, and that's all natural. And let's talk about hygiene for a little bit. Being a hygienist, I didn't know that about you. Mm-hmm. That's cool. So your hygiene department, what shifted, through the concepts? You can see the numbers don't lie, but what shifted for you and your team?
Our hygienists really understanding that they are the ones, they're on the front lines. They make the difference in the patient's health, and that we have to make our patients healthy. That's really important to us. And so really trying to find a system, and that is where we did reach out to other, people in the community who were having successes in hygiene department, and then they were able to connect with our hygienist, and then we were able to, even bringing on, full-time hygienists and really having them invested in, helping to get the practice healthier, and adding other, techniques and, such as PeriProtect and different things that we can do to ensure the health of our patients.
One of my favorite things about the community, we're talking about community, it's like Roger Bannister. Roger Bannister ran a 4-minute mile, and then after he ran that 4-minute mile, 37 people ran it. When Donna and her team are investing and looking at what the community's doing, they're seeing other people demonstrate, like, hey, we're doing $75,000 a month in treatment presented and hygiene, and they're going, well, how much are we doing? Oh, 12,000? Well, we got to change the game, and that's the power of community. Yes. When peers see peers doing something different, you can tell them, I can tell them, the coach can tell them, but when they see a peer doing it, it's like, boom.
Yeah, and that isn't a thing you learn in dental school or hygiene school. You learn the clinical, and you think everybody does it the same way, exactly. So we all produce the same thing, so we show up, we go through the motions, we leave, and we get to the end of the year and see how we did. And I think that's what's really interesting about what you're doing here, is you throw that out the window and focus on something different, and suddenly you're hitting it, you're delivering. You focus on that result,
and then patient retention. Now I'm getting juiced. Like,
well, this goes back to the new patients. Yeah. And my magazine, I literally get a month doesn't go by without the question: how do we get more new patients? The solution is more new patients. And coming out of dental school, what do you need? More new patients. And so you always say, what do you say about the back door?
They go in the front door and they go out the back door.
Yeah. Well, if you could just keep fewer of them from going out the back door with what you do, then you need fewer of them coming in the front door.
And I actually have to admit that I have not done any external marketing in the past 2 years, actually.
So it's not like you're spending a bunch of money on marketing to get a bunch of new patients so you can take more time off.
Exactly.
A little bit different model. Retention.
Well, let's look at the retention. Back in 2016, when we started having dashboard, -13 every month were going out the back door. So you were like, and Steve, this is where people in practice, they won't see this -13 until 2 to 4 years down when the patient base is shrinking. Fast forward to this year, and you're 45 new patients, and you're net 6 plus. And so, -13 plus 6 net. And the way we do the net amount is how many new came in, how many recaptured, and then how many were lost. And the definition of lost is 18 months within that month. So if you did not have an appointment within 18 months, you would be considered lost. that's a big swing. That's a 20 patient swing. And most people are looking at, only new patients coming in the front door. They don't look at that net amount.
Right.
And so congratulations.
Thank you.
It's a big deal. And see, people ask us, well, where did that come from? Did it come from some snappy script?
Right.
It was all the pieces and parts, but there's one thing when you walk into the door here at Morningside Dental, behind the front desk is this declaration.
Yes.
And tell us about that declaration.
So by 2020, all New Yorkers understand that the mouth is a fundamental part of your total overall health, and Morningside Dental Care leads the charge for complete health dentistry to New York City and around the world.
That is amazing. And it does. When you walk in, it doesn't feel like you're just going to the dentist.
Yeah.
It's more. So, and I think that's why people stay.
There's no doubt, because
Yeah.
she gets it. That declaration there, and Donna was a help, she's a key help in this. The ADA just sent out a white paper to every dentist in the US, including Harlem and New York City, every dentist, that says complete health dentistry is the future, and this is what complete health dentistry is, and this is why it's important. And that was because of the leader in the community that you are and the declaration you made. You didn't know how you were going to do that, but guess what? That happened in 2019. Before now, you have to come up with a new game for 2020.
I got my new game.
You got to all right. Well, can we talk? Should we talk now, or should we leave this for another episode?
We can talk now.
All right, let's go. Where are you going next?
So, the group practices are really the future. And so now what we'd like to do are do some group practices in Tanzania. And it's called Tabasamu Dental Center Ltd. We just were incorporated about less than a month ago.
Oh my gosh.
And
You have a name and everything. Wow.
we have a name, we have a location, and so that, next year we're going to really start to do some things there, like in a big way.
So that means that you have to take care of the homeland.
Absolutely.
That means that it's time for associates
Yes.
to become partners,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
It's time to move to the next generation of what this looks like here.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great evolution.
Yeah. I'm excited.
So I want to tie that into why this is important. So I want to get to one more. I think I have one or two more that I just pulled out because I was having fun. This is this is one of my faves. Again, hygiene reappointment, right? 38% in 2016, 80% this year. So 8 out of 10 people leave with an appointment. Here's what we know about that, and this is important for the listeners to hear. It takes 10 times the energy to get a person back that doesn't have an appointment, because here's what we know. It's an integrity breach when you leave with an appointment and break it. There's no harm, no foul to the patient. They had no commitment to being there in the first place.
And you had two out of three who came in for hygiene, left, and you never knew if you'd see them again.
I have hygienists. They're not hygienists anymore. They're hygienists, and they are passionate about what they do and caring for their patients, like all hygienists are. But they really know, how to do that, and they're really making a difference.
Well, and that's the reason why triple the number of patients stick and come back and come back and come back, and patients forever. So that's amazing.
Yeah, and then look at her collections from 173 in 16 and 207 in 2019. So that's no small.
Those are real numbers too.
Yeah.
That's the interesting thing. We can talk about this all we want, and how awesome it would be if you could take 2 months off, and you do. And I do believe there are a lot of people who would watch this and think, well, this happened or that happened, or she fell into some money, or that's how she's able to. You tell me if I'm wrong. But when you see this, when you're in practice and you're gutting it out, you think, well, that's just, there's something up with that. You're skeptical about it. Yeah. And so one of the things that Gary and I have really done here in these trips and these visits is find out that the practice owners who do it are very genuine and very real. And you didn't win the lottery and make this happen.
Not yet.
Oh, there's not much more you could do by winning the lottery. I mean, you really have. I mean, you've got a machine that just takes care of you, and you can do what you want. It just changes your life. So, yeah, I think that's a great message for anybody who's listening. Is,
Well, it couldn't
it is
happen
possible.
couldn't happen to a better mom and
Mhm.
wife and community leader and visioneering for all of what's possible in another continent. You know, the last statistic I wanted to get in was 27% increase in individual patients. So you were at 940, went over to almost $1,200 per patient by serving them, giving them what they need and want. And you come from your heart and you deliver this, and now you have a business model. You know, the 4 things that you've done over the last 4 or 5 years, we put in a purpose. And it's very clear, and that whole team bought into that purpose. You come in here and there's a buzz. I mean, they give me a hug when I walk in this room. They get like, this is bigger than any one person. You know, so often we see dental practices where one person is like taking everybody hostage and hijacking the team, right? There's that. Then what you did was you put some people in the right places doing the right things. So purpose with people. You add some process to that, meaning there's 3 systems that we put in: case acceptance, retention, and the new patient. The last thing we did was we put some platforms in. You got an analytics board, you got a marketing board, right? And with that platform, now we're starting to automate all this practice management stuff, which is, I never thought that'd be happening. I mean, seriously, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
I
isn't it
know.
amazing?
Yeah, we've got our leader, Gary Cady, has just really inspired people to be able to dream big and to know that there's more out there than
Thank you, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Last bits of wisdom. What would you share? Like if you were gonna talk to your fellow graduating class and you could share one thing with them, what would you share with them?
That there is not a moment that I regret going to dental school and finishing, and that there is so much that is possible after you finish. There's so much, and shoot for the stars, and you can do, whatever you can do. And we're saving lives, getting people healthier, and enjoying it, having fulfilling life.
Yeah. And I want to add one more thing, my favorite thing, you just said it earlier. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens could ever change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And we're very grateful to be here with you. Thank you for sharing yourself so beautifully and being behind the mask. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I've really had a great afternoon.
Likewise.
Thank you.